Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood with Hegwood Law Group, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning, and welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood, and our very special guest today, Jack Angel. And Jack, you're with the Senior Care Authority of Southeast Texas. Is that correct?
That's correct, Kim. And first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about this very important subject here today. But I am with Senior Care Authority of Southeast Texas. We're very much a concierge service to help families with the challenges sometimes associated with placement for their seniors, elder care planning services, and then, of course, I think the important topic that we have today on driving with dignity as we all age.
So one of the things that clients, they'll come in and it's the children usually, and they'll say, "Oh my God, mom or dad should not be driving," and so you're like, "What do we do?" And I've got a lot of options that we tell them. We have done some. We've done some interesting things to keep parents from driving. And so that's a good story. I'll tell you one day. But for the most part, how do you talk to people as far as, so for the kids that are listening to the program today, or maybe even the people that are not so sure about their driving listening to it, what are the signs that someone should look for that maybe a senior shouldn't be driving anymore?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think ultimately a challenge that we all have. I mean, Kim, who wants to be the one to tell mom or dad that they should give up driving after so many years? It's such a sensitive topic, as you can imagine, for any of us, and I always try and approach it with a certain level of dignity and respect and sensitivity as we're looking at the issue. Some of the signs that we all recognize are, in many cases, some near misses. Maybe backing out of the driveway, or just taking a little longer to get back to and from a certain location, starting to lose their way. Certainly, as we age, there's just the reality of some of the issues that we're all possibly dealing with. There may be additional medications involved. Some of the physical limits that we're involved with as well. But probably some of the more telling signs are their decisions on the road, and whether it be going to familiar places and then taking maybe a little bit longer, as we talk about the near misses, possibly backing into the garbage can, or taking a corner too tight, having difficulty at intersections, especially the left-hand turns. And I think more than anything, when we're looking at those issues, the conversation really needs to focus around, I think, what we're all interested in, and that is minimizing the likelihood of an incident. And in order to do so, I think it's the focus on the skills, not necessarily the age. There's some very competent seniors out there that have really no issue with their driving abilities, but having a strong awareness as to whether or not they might need to limit some of their activities. And by that I mean, Kim, we're talking about maybe that you don't drive at night, or you limit your travels on the freeways, or some left-hand turns and things of that nature. But I think first and foremost, it's an awareness, and from that we can start to have what in many cases can be a very difficult conversation.
So, having that difficult conversation kind of begs the next question. So, how do you start to have that conversation? I mean, I guess I would say I got lucky in some aspects that I never had to have it with my grandmother, because, as she aged, even long before she, really declined, her driving was atrocious.
Yeah.
So I found myself, driving her instead of, it's easier to put her in the car with the kids than to me get the kids in the car with her. And then she only went like down the back roads to the grocery store and things like that. So she wasn't driving that far from the house. But that's a difficult conversation, because for most people, and I will tell you no offense here, but men generally, that loss of independence, that ability to control, that ability to do what you want to when you want to, is very difficult for seniors. And we see a lot of people get very angry and and just go after the kids sometimes because that you're not right. I can still drive. I'm fine. I haven't had an accident. And so, what are some helpful things for the kids?
Well, I think approaching the topic, with that level of sensitivity, we don't want it to get into a situation where it's turned into be such a confrontational and I think an environment where there's a lot of frustration on all sides. More than anything else, an opportunity to remember that a loss of your driving, or I like to call it a retirement from your driving, just like you would have a retirement from your job. It should never really mean a loss of independence. Yes, there will certainly be some inconvenience, but we can talk a little bit about just the wealth of transportation options that exist out there today, home deliveries, things of that nature, the ability to lean on friends, services out there for reasonably priced local transportation services, especially trying to get back and forth to Walmart or the church or things of that nature. But I think the conversation can have a practical sense as well. I found a great amount of success if you start to bring in some of the aspects of how much it costs to have a car. AAA says it's about $10,000 a year, just to maintain a vehicle with insurance and gas and maintenance and all that as well. You look at, I think, the idea of being able to focus very much on why we're having the conversation, and that is your care for the loved one. Beyond that, there are certainly the harsh realities of both the civil and criminal liabilities if, heaven forbid, that something should actually happen. It's one thing if you accidentally back into the mailbox or to a garbage can. It's a different thing if you actually have an accident with another vehicle or possibly a child in the neighborhood. No one wants to think that their life savings are going to be tied up into possible litigation and then the likelihood of a senior spending their final years incarcerated. And unfortunately, that is the reality of it. In addition, not to expand on it too much, but the idea is that as we tend to age, our bodies do become a little bit more frail. And for seniors beyond the age of 65, the likelihood of them actually being in a fatal incident, even for what would many times be considered a minor accident, it goes up 2.5 times versus anyone under the age of 65. And it's really got to do just with the frailty of our bodies. So there's, I think, a number of items that you can have that conversation with your loved one that you might have some concern about. And then, of course, there's people like me who bring together the Beyond Driving with Dignity program, a nationally recognized program that was developed by an Ohio State trooper, if you can imagine, Matt Gurwell, back in 2009 after 24 years on the force. And Matt just saw a real need to embrace a program like this to help have those conversations and then start to move that senior into a more safer transportation environment.
So the mom or dad has decided that, okay, if I'm not doing that much driving, it's, maybe I buy the argument that it's too expensive to keep the car. So, now we're lucky in the sense of, there's Uber that we didn't have before. I just keep thinking when my grandfather couldn't drive anymore, he was devastated. I mean, devastated. And so I basically, I left until I let him have his pity party for about 24 hours. And I went back to him and said, "You're looking at this all wrong." I'm like, "You have this beautiful woman here that takes care of you all day long. Her job is to chauffeur you around. You're not limited to be here at the house. She can take you anywhere you want to go. You want to go just riding around, get in the car. She can ride you around. The beautiful thing about it is all you get to do is look out the window. You don't have to worry about anything anymore. You don't have to do any of that kind of stuff. You can actually enjoy being in the truck again. And so, so I think sometimes, how you present something makes all the difference in the world sometimes. But besides, things like Uber, do y'all have other options as far as where, how people are, getting around? I mean, family is obviously one, places like Uber or Lyft, depending on, where you live. But do you have other options as well?
There are, Kim. I think once people are aware of what's out there, it's the wonderful age that we're living in right now in the 21st century. Historically, things like Uber and Lyft could only be accessed through a mobile phone or a smartphone. That's no longer the case. You can actually get access to those services now with a landline. In addition to that, there are within both Harris County, Montgomery County, Fort Bend County, certainly within our general area, there are a number of transportation services through the Texas Department of Home Health Services. These are licensed, bonded, very reasonably priced services where some local people have been able to offer those driving abilities. There are also free transportation options. They're maybe not as convenient. You usually have to give like a 24-hour service notice, but to be able to get to church or to get to Walmart on a predetermined schedule, like a kind of like a bus environment, but more targeted towards a local pickup. I think as we start to investigate those options, a big part is in the front end with the planning with the family. We talked about a little bit earlier, how do you go ahead and approach this? And in addition to the direct conversation from the family members, they're to engage your doctor or clergy personnel or some friend or trusted resource for that senior, where maybe they might have a little bit more a direct credibility on having this discussion in a more open environment. But back to your point, Kim, I think the idea is that there are a wealth of transportation options out there, and it's just a matter of looking at your general area and being able to determine what's right for them. A lot of it goes into the front end planning before you even have the conversation, so you've got the answers available instead of having to get into a debate or a discussion about what they're going to do next.
So you mentioned earlier the Beyond Driving with Dignity program. So can you tell our listeners what that program is?
Yeah, it's about a 2 to 3 hour non-clinical discussion. We like to think of it as more of a learning conversation. Yes, it's it has some nationally recognized techniques, if you will, or exercises that help the older driver reflect on exactly what their skill levels are, because it's all about their skills. There's some very simple physical checks there, with regards to being able to turn your head or lift your arms and things of that nature. But the cognitive exercises have been developed over about 20 years from all over the world as a direct correlation to your ability to make decisions and actually be safe on the road. That said, I like to really kind of pepper the conversation. I get a tremendous amount of satisfaction listening to the stories of, tell me about your first car, tell me about your first road trip, and probably hear more things than I shouldn't, but it's just a wonderful way to try and make sure that all of this program is truly geared in the benefit to the benefit of that senior driver. Ultimately, once we look at the results from those exercises, there's no gray area. We look and say either you were able to complete the exercise or you were not, and then from that can make some determination as to whether or not we need to look at limiting the driving. Probably about 2/3 of the programs that I conduct, the people make that decision to go ahead and retire from driving, and we celebrate it. It's truly an opportunity to recognize the very positive decision that individuals make for the safety of themselves, their loved ones, the people on the road. I think it's something that we really should recognize as a great event in terms of them being able to continue their their independence, but in a different way.
And I think it's important that they, that they have grasped that it's not a loss, it's just different. And I think that's really important for, for people, because most of them feel like it's a huge loss. So that's it's a great program. So in order for, for someone to do that. So let me ask you, so if someone wants to have their parent or somebody come do the program, what's involved?
So, they can contact me, any Beyond Driving with Dignity professional in the area. From that, I usually do half an hour to an hour, just free consultation. Tell me a little bit more about what's been going on, why are we having the conversation? And then from that, I like to set up, if we decide to move forward and actually conduct the program, I do it in the convenience of their home. With COVID over the last year, obviously, it's been more of the virtual, but as things start to relax a little bit, then the idea of having the one-on-one conversation after I've had the preliminary discussions with the family, because I help coach them just like any professional would, whether it be in helping with your taxes or your legal estate planning or things of that nature, that I actually work a lot with the family on the front end. From that, I have a one-on-one conversation with the older driver. We go through this 2 to 3 hour program. If I feel is appropriate, then I may get in the car with them to do a short drive to somewhere that they go on a regular basis, just to complete the assessment in that area. Of course, I check, the insurance and registration and all of those pieces as well. Not far, maybe 10, 15-minute type of drive. But it just adds to, I think, the credibility of that program. Once that's done, then we're really at a decision point as to whether or not the senior decides to go ahead and retire from driving. And we make that statement. I bring the family back in. We talk about the decisions that were made. Or in some cases, they're just adamant that they're not going to give up the keys. And I really work hard to encourage them to say, ultimately, if they're capable, then there's no reason for them not to continue their driving. But I think it's a recognition that they do agree that if for whatever reason things change in the future, then they will reassess their driving and then implement some of the changes to go ahead and retire from the road.
Perfect. So our listeners can find you the website, correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct. That's correct. I see it's up there right now, seniorcare-southeasttexas.com. You can reach me there anytime. I'm available to be able to support even just a conversation if it helps people stay safe, and more than anything else, start to address the issue. Because as we talked about earlier, Kim, it's such a sensitive topic. I think we just really need to handle it with respect and dignity. But I will say that you really should not wait. Things are usually, more often than not, they're not going to get any better. If there's an issue that's kind of brought you to this determination that we need to really look at mom or dad's driving, then the sooner that it's addressed, the better off I think ultimately you'll come to that decision, and everyone will find themselves in a much safer environment.
Jack, is there a phone number where someone can reach you?
Absolutely. My number, direct number is 936-225-4373. That's 936-225-4373. I will say that I also offer for social workers continuing education units on this topic, in addition to my elder care planning services and my long-term care placement services, defined safe and affordable long-term living for seniors as well. So I look at this as just an extension of the idea to try and relieve family stress, because as we know, there's such a huge number of that continue to require some additional help in their services, whether it be with estate planning, elder law services, like some of the great features that you are able to offer yourself, Kim. And then I think, provide that level of support so people don't feel like they're lost out there when they're trying to address some of these issues.
Perfect. And so thanks, Jack, for being on the show today. And I'm so thankful that there's, another option out there for our seniors and the families specifically, because they're usually the ones that have the hardest time, having these conversations. And so thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, Kim. Thank you again, and I appreciate all you do.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.